Welcome. So we have John Andrews here with us from Celect, and delighted to have you here this morning.
Excited to be here.
Great. So John, we just invested in Celect earlier this year, and we are excited to have you as part of the portfolio. Would love to get a little bit of an overview on Celect, what you do, and how did you get started?
Sure, absolutely. So, big question in terms of kind of how we got started. There's a lot of work went into the run up to the founding of the company. So, the company was founded by two MIT professors, Vivek Farias and Devavrat Shah. They had been collaborating on a line of research over the better part of the last decade, which started when they were in the PhD program at Stanford, and then both got tenured teaching positions at MIT. Devavrat currently runs he's part of CSAIL and the Electrical Engineering Computer Science Department. He runs the Machine Learning and Statistics Departments, leadership position there. And Vivek runs the Supply Chain Department within MIT Sloan, so within the business school. And they had some early success with the early work that they were doing around understanding customer choice and customer choice modeling, and then building out kind of a high-scale predictive analytics and optimization platform based on some of that core research. They had some early success with some academic projects, a lot of accolades within the academic world, but then had some success with some commercial projects as well. In 2013, right around the time that they founded the company, MIT CSAIL, the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, celebrated 50 years of existence. And as part of the celebration around that, they put together a list of the top 50 technological innovations ever to come out of MIT. So on that list were things like the digital computer, ARPANET, the precursor to the internet, nuclear fission. So some pretty groundbreaking technologies. There were also some commercial technologies like Akamai and iRobot. And then Celect was on that list as well.
Interesting.
And I think one of the reasons we bring that up, or I bring it up here, is because one, I think it points to the seriousness of the underlying science and technology behind what we're doing at Celect. But two, I think it also, I know it got the guys very excited about kind of what they had, right? And realized that there was an opportunity to bring this into the commercial space and see some value with it. And kind of based on what they were doing, and where some of that early success was coming from, we decided to focus the technology around this idea of inventory optimization from a retail and brands context. So we can talk more about that, but that's really where the focus of the company, kind of how it evolved, and the focus of the company is today, kind of based on the early beginnings.
Great. It's commonly said that retail runs on three things. You have catalog, convenience, and price.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things you differentiate on. And we live in this data-first world, and it sounds like you're bringing data to all three of those things. So it's inventory management, which is core to retail. Yep. Maybe you can talk about that. Sort of how important is this problem you're working on, and how broadly does it apply to things that are core to retail along all those dimensions?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the core focus of the company, where we focused our predictive analytics and machine learning capabilities, is around this idea of inventory optimization, right? So if you think about inventory in terms of retail or brands, right? First of all, it's the largest number on the retailer's balance sheet, right? So from an economic perspective, being able to manage that inventory and the inventory dollars better is something that's very important, right? Two, it's the most fundamental task that a retailer has, right? Is identifying which products to bring into inventory, how much of those products in what quantities, in what assortment, and then how do you allocate that product to where the demand is for that product based on that customer demand, right? That leads to the second point you mentioned around convenience. And another way to think about that is customer experience, right? Getting that product to be where the customer needs it at the point in demand, or when the customer has the demand for that product.
Mm-hmm. So when you go into a store, and those channels are now exploding. So I can order something from my phone, I can go pick it up at the store, I go to the store and I want to try on a pair of boots and I want to make sure that my size is available. Mm-hmm. So the convenience of going to the store is dependent on having the things that I want at the store. But can you also sort of talk about the omni-channel challenge, where it's convenient for me to shop in different ways in different contexts, and at the same time I want the systems to be responsive to what I need at that point, and that also runs on data.
Yeah.
And how does that influence what you do at Celect?
No, absolutely. It's actually really it's a great question, because it is kind of the fundamental challenge from a complexity perspective that we deal with, right, and that retailers deal with. It's also one of the reasons why I think the problem is so big, and therefore the opportunity is so large. And I think one of the reasons that Nokia also NGP saw the opportunity to invest within Celect. So when we talk about inventory and getting the products as close to the customer, and we, one of our solutions is around allocation in terms of kind of how you allocate to your stores. People think about it as, okay, so it's a stores problem. I thought stores were going away, and isn't that getting disrupted from an omni-channel perspective? Yes, there's major disruption going on right now. There's a lot of transformation going on right now. But the retailers who are going to win are going to be the ones that identify how they live within this omni-channel world, and they understand how the consumer wants to interact with products. So at the core of what we do is we identify what the localized demand is for a particular product, right? For whether it be this jacket or the boots you're wearing, right? At a particular point in time. So how well is this jacket going to sell in the downtown San Francisco store or the Boise, Idaho store 6 months from now, right? If you can identify that, that's extremely valuable. But where that demand is coming from, yes, it's demand within a particular store, but you also have to think about the capture area within that particular location for customers searching online. Because as you mentioned, what the customer is looking for is the opportunity to maybe browse online for particular products. Maybe they go into the store, they try it on, but they don't buy it right away. Then maybe they go home and they decide, you know what, I should have bought it. Let me just buy it. Then the retailer has a decision that they need to make in terms of where do they ship that product from. Because they could ship it from a fulfillment center, but they could also ship it from a store, and they could ship it from the store that you just tried it on in. Now, we may know by being able to predict demand that that item is going to sell out of that store in the next couple of weeks. So if you ship it from that store, the retailer has, what is effectively sin number one for retailers, which is having an out of stock. You had a customer who wanted to buy that product, and then they're going to go into that store and it's not going to be available to them. So you have now an opportunity to optimize that inventory, looking at both your in-store traffic, your online demand, to ship that product from a store where, by understanding demand, we know it's not going to sell out of the other store. Maybe it's 200 miles away. Shipping costs are going to be about the same. Time to ship are going to be about the same. But now you can optimize with that very valuable in-season lever of a ship-from-store strategy. So now when you kind of break that down and you look at, once I can understand that demand, I'm meeting the demand of the consumer in terms of their desire to go online and then have an expectation to go into the store and have it available to them. But then they want to actually purchase it online and have it shipped from a store where you're not seeing as much demand, so that you can have that optimization. You reduce a markdown, you reduce a stock out, the customer's happy, everybody wins.
You avoid the two sins.
You avoid the two sins.
No stockouts, no markdowns.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And the third, which is keeping your logistics costs low, which is a growing challenge for retailers in this omni-channel world, because not everybody's coming to them and just picking it up, right? They need to ship it, and kind of keeping those costs low is kind of the third thing that you can optimize against.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So how far along is the company? Can you talk about some of your customers and the excitement that you are building around the growth at the company? We'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, we're a few years in. We've, been doubling in growth, having good success within the market. We've had a tremendous amount of success early within fashion and apparel, right? And I think a big reason for that is because the challenges within that market are pretty acute in terms of being able to understand
fast retailing,
demand. With fast retailing, retailers are trying to do, particularly within apparel, they're trying to do two things really well. They're trying to shrink the amount of time it takes from an idea design, right, to when the product gets into the store, right?
Yeah.
If you can do that faster, you're meeting that demand, you're following trends faster, et cetera, and you're meeting customer demand faster. And then 2 is just product accuracy, right? Being able to have the right product available in the right quantities in the right location, right? And we can help, we can help with both of those issues. Now, apparel and footwear, apparel, et cetera, is interesting because the challenge is even more pressing because the products that you're generally trying to identify the demand for example, this sport coat, this was manufactured once, right? Most likely, right? This particular design, fabric, cut, etc., was going to be on the shelf for about 16 weeks, and that's it, right? Yes, there are other blue or checkered sports coats that have also been sold, but this particular one, being able to identify what the demand is going to be for this particular item is also a hard problem, where data and analytics can help with that problem. In terms of customers within that space, Urban Outfitters, Aldo, the shoe manufacturer and retailer out of Montreal. Lucky brand jeans is another customer. Polo, Ralph Lauren, and then we've begun to expand outside of footwear and apparel as well. Into grocery, into some hard lines as well.
Interesting. And do digitally native retailers work differently? So if you had a Bonobos or Warby Parker or some of these guys, do they think differently? Are their systems different? Do you work as well with them as with mainline retailers who are running legacy systems?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess, do they think differently? I think they do think differently. It's a mouthful. Yeah. In terms of kind of the digitally native approach, right? And understanding and having all of their systems and infrastructure be built from a ground up with that kind of online kind of digitally native approach, right? Now, I think other large retailers and medium-sized retailers that have been more considered traditional retailers in the past are catching up, and they're thinking that they and the approach that they take is now more aligned with that omni-channel kind of digital thinking. The thing that's interesting is these digitally native companies. We talked about stores earlier. The stores are important.
They're building stores now.
They're building stores. It's a really important part of their strategy. Yeah. The thing I love is being able to go into one of these stores, and even if I don't want to buy something that day, if I'm just at the mall or somewhere, I can go in and I can try it on. I love the fact that a company like Untuckit has just a rack full of just one of their shirts, but in every size available. So I can just go in and figure out my size. Now I know whether the medium slim fit fits me, right? Or if I need a large or regular fit, right? And then I can go in and I can order whatever I want online. I may want to try on different things. So that experience in terms of what they need for their inventory and how they want to service their customers is they're dealing with that challenge as well, right? And it all comes down to being able to have the best products and the right products, and being able to meet that demand and that localized demand, such that you've got the right products, you've got enough of them, they're as close as possible to the customer.
Great. A little bit of a different question. So I was at this conference last week called All Raise, and which is about women in VC and bringing more women into this thing. You have I guess your end customer is predominantly women, right? Yep. In your industry, and your wife she's VP of Planning, and so kind of, are you a founder for change? How do you think about diversity in your company?
Diversity is a really important element of kind of how we're building the company. I think for a number of different reasons, but I think it's just good business in terms of bringing in different perspectives, right? Yeah. Both cultural diversity. We have a very international team in terms of the background of folks within our team, and building out more female leadership within both our executive team and within the team in general is something that is very important to us. I think the impact that has just on culture within the team is just a very positive one. And so, we have, when you look at our management team today, it's a pretty diverse, both culturally, kind of the international background, as well as from a gender perspective.